Well, hello there. You're watching All 24 News, world news program broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm Karim Zachary. Let's explore tonight's top stories. Tonight, Algeria delivers a firm response to France over its visa policies, accusing Paris of leaking decisions via back channels, a breach of diplomatic protocol. And the National Assembly denounces France's political games, vowing to defend national sovereignty. Details just ahead. Next up, President of the Republic Abdelmadjid Tebboune meets with the Sahrawi ambassador, who praises Algeria's unshakable support against global pressure. We'll have full details on these developments shortly. Coming up as well, in Gaza, dozens killed as Zionist airstrikes intensify, targeting hospitals and crippling Gaza's health system. 2 million now face famine, warns the UN, as aid remains blocked. Also in tonight's headlines, in Libya, the army alleges foreign interference in backing a controversial militia leader. Meanwhile, lawmakers begin vetting PM candidates, but warn a rushed government without unity will collapse. Stay tuned, full details coming right up. Welcome back to the program. First off in our news, Algeria announced Monday it will strictly apply the principle of reciprocity after accusing France of failing to honor a 2013 visa agreement. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said Paris had violated a deal which exempted holders of diplomatic and mission passports from visa requirements, calling France's actions an ineffective suspension of the pact. Algiers warned that its response would directly reflect France's level of compliance with the agreement, signaling a potential escalation in visa restrictions.
Algeria sees no specific benefit in the 2013 agreement and notes that France has effectively suspended it without following proper legal procedures. Algeria will respond with strict reciprocity, matching the extent of France's failure to uphold its commitment. France appears to be freezing or suspending the agreement while avoiding responsibility for the consequences in clear violation of its terms.
And in the same context, Algeria has strongly condemned France's recent decisions, saying they were announced through unofficial channels in a blatant breach of diplomatic norms. The Algerian Foreign Ministry stressed it had received no official notification from French authorities via proper diplomatic channels.
It is clear that French decisions are now announced through these unofficial channels in a blatant violation of established diplomatic norms and the provisions of the Algerian-French agreement concluded in 2013 and related to the exemption of holders of diplomatic and mission passports from visa requirements, contrary to what it stipulated in Article 8 of the same agreement. Algeria has not to date received any official notification from the French authorities through the only reliable channel in relation between states, namely the diplomatic channel. The chargé d'affaires of the French embassy in Algeria, who has summoned 4 times by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in this regard, confirmed that he did not receive any instructions from the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Similarly, the letter was unable to this day. No response has been provided to the repeated official Algerian requests to clarify the French position on this issue.
On a similar note, Algeria's new National Assembly Speaker Azouz Nasri has denounced what he called France's vile and petty political practices. In his inaugural speech, Nasri pledged firm resistance to foreign interference, stressing Algeria's categorical rejection of political blackmail and its resolve to defend national sovereignty against all threats, be it internal or external.
إن الجزائر المسالمة والعاصية
peaceful yet defiant Algeria, resistant to its enemies and conspirators both in secret and through violence, will not under any circumstances or any situation accept any infringement on its independence political decision making by any external party, including France, which seems nostalgic for its colonial past and seeks to destabilize our constitutional institutions and cast doubt on our judicial system. Algeria firmly and categorically rejects all forms of political blackmail, violent petty political maneuvering, and any attempts to undermine its sovereignty under the guise of diplomacy.
In other Algeria-related news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, on Monday received the outgoing ambassador of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Abdelkader Talib Omar, at the end of his diplomatic mission in Algeria. The farewell meeting reaffirmed Algeria's steadfast support for the Sahrawi cause. Speaking after the talks, the ambassador expressed heartfelt gratitude for Algeria's decades-long solidarity with the Sahrawi people, praising its unwavering commitment in the face of what he called conspiracies and pressures.
I would like to highlight and emphasize the unwavering and consistent support that the Sahrawi people have received from both the Algerian state and the Algerian people. Over the decades that the Sahrawi people have dwelled in Algeria, the land of 1.5 million martyrs, which has stood and advocated for its just cause throughout the past decades. As we commemorate the 52nd anniversary of the creation of the Front, Algeria remains committed to our cause. It remains faithful to its principles and to the brotherly ties, no matter the pressure or the challenges it has endured.
Still with the president's activities, the head of state, Abdelmajid Tebboune, on Monday received the Vatican's outgoing ambassador to Algeria, Archbishop Korean Matthew Violonko, as he wrapped up his diplomatic mission. The farewell meeting took place in the presence of top presidential aides, including the principal private secretary to the president, Boualem Boualem, and diplomatic advisor, Amar Abba. Similarly, Algerian President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboune met with Akin Wumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, and his delegation on Monday. The meeting held at the Presidential Palace was also attended by top officials, including Boualem Boualem, the Principal Private Secretary to the President, Finance Minister Abdelkarim Boulazard, and Algeria's Administrator at the bank, Ibrahim Boujan. Turning to economic developments, the Islamic Development Bank Group launched its 2025 annual meetings Monday in Algiers. Finance, economy, development, and planning ministers from the bank's 57 member states, along with global financial leaders, gathered under the theme Diversifying Economies, Enriching Lives, to address shared socioeconomic challenges. The event also marks the 50th session of the Islamic Development Bank Board of Governors, celebrating 5 decades of advancing Islamic finance, innovation, and sustainable development. Algeria, a founding member of the bank, is hosting for the 3rd time, having previously held the meetings in 1990 and 2001.
Algeria has many unique features. It has rich natural resources. It has unique human resources. The youngsters and the youth are a very important factor for development and progress. And we think that this would be, we think that Algeria would play a very important role, not only in supporting the ISDB group, but also in the region and for the rest of the other member countries.
On the same occasion, participants in the Islamic Development Bank Group's annual meeting affirmed that Algeria's hosting of the event underscores its pivotal role in promoting South-South cooperation and strengthening economic collaboration across the Islamic world.
Today's outcome was the implementing of a capacity building program of the companies under the FCIC and enhancing the presence of the youth, as well as increasing the membership of the FCIC by conducting programs and initiatives, as well as electing the Assembly General for the electoral cycle for 2025 to 2027.
The decisions awaited from these meetings and from political leaders in our countries, Islamic countries, is to empower these young people, this youth, young women, to be able to involve themselves better and more in the new economy, the digital economy, the new technologies.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the meetings, UN Women's West Africa Regional Office and the Islamic Organization for Food Security have signed a memorandum of understanding during the Islamic Development Bank's annual meeting. The agreement aims to strengthen collaboration in promoting gender equality and empowering women with agri-food systems and food security across OIC member countries in West and Central Africa. Both organizations emphasize the crucial role of women as drivers of resilient, inclusive, and sustainable food systems in the region.
Today I am honored to sign Memorandum of Understanding with Regional Director of UN Women to implement multi-country program which aimed to enhance women empowerment in agriculture.
In the rural area, a lot of young people, a lot of young women are migrating outside of their environments. So this program, by developing the cassava, for instance, that a lot of young people cultivate, can fix them in the natural environment so that it will also prevent external migration.
All right, moving on to other headlines now. Heavy bombing by Zionist forces has devastated large areas of Khan Yunis and other parts of the Gaza Strip, killing at least 148 Palestinians in the last 24 hours. Among the victims were entire families, including a mother and 6 children, as airstrikes targeted homes, displaced persons tents, and schools sheltering civilians. Intense raids forced thousands to flee their homes, seeking refuge amid worsening humanitarian conditions. The Palestinian Civil Defense confirmed dozens of injuries and the recovery of many bodies after attacks from refugee camps in Nusayrat, Al Buraij, and Gaza City. The relentless strikes have left Gaza reeling, with medical sources reporting a mounting death toll and widespread destruction. Well, it's as if the death toll in Gaza is racing uncontrollably due to Zionist forces' brutal bombardment, striking unarmed civilians, displaced families sleeping in tents, and the sick in hospitals, even medicine warehouses. Let's get the full report by Salman Asib now.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is reaching catastrophic levels as Zionist forces intensify bombardment targeting hospitals, medical supplies, and civilians. The death toll continues to rise, with reports of patients and displaced families caught in the crossfire. On Monday, Zionists warplanes struck the medicine warehouse at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, crippling care for more than 500 patients.
The stocks of medicines and solutions for dialysis patients were targeted. Kidney failure patients are condemned to death. We have nearly 30 in intensive care and no space for 7 more in the emergency room.
The Indonesian hospital, for its part, was bulldozed after days under siege, cutting off medical teams and patients alike. With most facilities disabled, hospitals like الأهلي Baptist remains one of the few lifelines, but it too struggles with shortages.
Baptist Hospital is receiving a large number of wounded. Capacity is severely reduced, but we treat everyone who arrives despite space constraints.
Gaza's people are caught in a vice of war, hunger, and a collapsing health system. Cancer patients go untreated, families starve, and hospitals crumble. I have cancer. There is no food, no treatment. How long can we endure this? We want crossings reopened, and above all, for the war to end.
We beg for borders to reopen. Hospitals lack equipment, even basic aid.
Subjected to a suffocating blockade for over 2 months, Gaza needs some 608 trucks daily just to survive. Yet as ceasefire talks hang in the balance, the bombing press on, an unrelenting nightmare for people on the brink.
And as the situation deteriorates further, Ottawa reports that over 90% of homes in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed amid the ongoing aggression. The agency warns that families face unprecedented devastation, with many displaced multiple times. Ottawa highlights the impossibility of providing adequate shelter for Palestinians amid the widespread destruction in the Strip. And adding to the dire warnings, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned Monday of an escalating famine risk in Gaza, where 2 million people are facing starvation. Speaking at the WHO annual meeting in Geneva, he condemned the deliberate blockade of humanitarian aid and called for urgent evacuation of thousands of patients needing medical treatment.
I hope you agree that we have many achievements to celebrate. But we also know that many countries face significant challenges. Many ministers have told me that sudden and steep cuts to bilateral aid are causing severe disruption in their countries and imperiling the health of millions of people. In at least 70 countries, patients are missing out on treatments. Health facilities have closed. Health workers have lost their jobs, and people face increased out-of-pocket health spending.
On a related note, UNICEF warns that children in Gaza face starvation, disease, and death amid relentless bombing and a blockade on aid. In a recent post, the agency highlighted the deteriorating conditions over the past 2 months and called for urgent humanitarian access and an immediate ceasefire. Echoing these concerns, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization also confirmed that Gaza has faced a comprehensive blockade since last March, blocking essential humanitarian aid. Beth Backdole, FAO's deputy director, revealed that ongoing displacement orders and restricted zones have forced over 90% of Gaza's population to flee yet again.
Since March 2nd, the comprehensive blockade that was put in place has really prevented the delivery of essential humanitarian and even commercial supplies. So that's been restrictions on everything from food, water, medical items, fuel, and cooking gas. But alongside that, I think we should all be mindful that we also are seeing mass displacements. 90% of population in the Gaza Strip has been displaced, and often at multiple times.
Meanwhile, in Morocco, thousands marched in Casablanca Sunday, demanding an end to normalization between Morocco's regime and the Zionist entity. Organized by the Moroccan Front to Support Palestine, protesters condemned the siege of Gaza and the ongoing genocidal crimes against Palestinians. To other regional news, the Libyan army has accused unnamed countries of exploiting Abdul Ghani al-Kikli, also known as Ginwa al-Kikli, the former head of the stabilization support apparatus. Major General Mahmoud Hamza, director of military intelligence, praised a recent security operation in Abu Salim, which lasted 1 hour and dismantled what he described as an empire of injustice and crimes.
By the grace of God, the military operations carried out by the Libyan army across all its units continued and fulfilled their mission effectively. The situation that people were previously living under changed significantly, and within just 1 hour, our operations were crowned with success.
In Libya still, and as you followed in our headlines, the Libyan House of Representatives announced Sunday the start of work by a committee tasked with screening candidates for the new government's leadership. The committee met in Benghazi to review files in coordination with the Supreme Council of State. Meanwhile, parliamentarians warned against any unilateral moves to change or form a new government without broad political consensus, calling such steps illegitimate both politically and constitutionally. Shifting focus to international diplomacy, Iran described its nuclear negotiations with the United States as difficult, with the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai accusing Washington of lacking seriousness and good faith. Speaking Monday, Bagay stressed that Iran's nuclear enrichment is non-negotiable. He also denied receiving any written US proposals, saying only verbal offers have been made and those have frequently changed.
We use the word difficult in relation to negotiations with the US. Part of the difficulty of negotiations with the US is that you are dealing with a party that does not adhere to any of the conventional rules of a diplomatic process. The very imposition of sanctions while claiming to pursue a diplomatic process with the Islamic Republic of Iran is itself a sign of lack of seriousness and good faith. This is the least that can be said.
And in other topical news, Russia claims new gains in eastern Ukraine, but the cost is mounting. As fierce fighting escalates, civilians continue to bear the brunt of the violence. Meanwhile, world leaders are rushing to revive stalled peace efforts, hoping to prevent further devastation. Let's get the details with Sofiane Kenturi now.
Russia says its forces are pushing forward in eastern Ukraine, claiming control of villages near Pokrovsk and making moves in Sumy, though Kiev denies these advances. At the same time, deadly attacks hit civilians in Kherson, killing 2 elderly residents. And as fighting escalates, diplomatic efforts face a race against time. On the diplomatic front, President Vladimir Putin described his 2-hour call with US President Donald Trump as a frank and very useful, asserting Russia's readiness to explore effective paths toward peace in Ukraine.
The conversation indeed took place and lasted more than 2 hours. I would like to note that it was very informative and very frank and overall, in my view, very useful in this regard. First, I thanked the President of the United States for the support of the United States in the resumption of direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine on a possible peace agreement. On the resumption of negotiations that were interrupted by the Ukrainian side, as you know, back in 2022.
I was talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov later clarified that, despite Trump's announcement of immediate ceasefire talks, no concrete timeline has been agreed upon. In Rome, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni affirmed Italy's support and that of its Western partners for Trump's peace initiative. Meloni highlighted intense consultations with leaders in Britain, Germany and France, welcoming Pope Leon XIV's offer to host Ukraine-Russia negotiations at the Vatican.
At the end of the phone call between President Trump and President Putin, I had another phone conversation with the French President Emmanuel Macron, the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, the Finnish President Alexander Stubb, the President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, along with the President of the United States. Work is being done for an immediate start to negotiations between the parties that can lead as soon as possible to a ceasefire and build the conditions for lasting peace in Ukraine. In this regard, the willingness of the Holy Father to host the talks at the Vatican was positively considered. Italy is ready to do its part to facilitate contacts and work for peace.
The battlefield and the negotiating table are moving at different speeds as villages fall and civilians bury their dead. Diplomats race to broker peace, but with every new assault, hope fades. The world watches to see if diplomacy can halt a war now in its 3rd year.
And finally in our news, it's time to catch up on more news stories making headlines across the globe with Yasin Urikti and the News in Brief now.
Sudan's Transitional Sovereignty Council Chairman Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has appointed Camille Idris as Prime Minister, according to a decree issued Monday. The post had been vacant since the resignation of Dr. Abdullah Hamdouk nearly 4 years ago. The European Union and the United Kingdom signed a new strategic partnership agreement on Monday, covering key areas such as defence, trade and fishing rights. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the deal aims to cut costs and boost jobs, particularly in energy and agri-food sectors. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned that countries refusing good faith trade talks with the US could face tariffs higher than those announced on April 2nd. He told CNN CNN, the measure is a pressure tool backed by President Trump to push for serious negotiations. Preliminary results show centrist pro-EU candidate Nikos Ordan winning Romania's presidential runoff with over 54% of the vote, defeating George Simion. Meanwhile, Telegram founder Pavel Durov accused French intelligence of attempting to interfere in the vote by pressuring him to block conservative Romanian voices.
Well, we've reached the end of our news for tonight. For more updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. I'm Karim Faz-Zachary signing off on behalf of all 24 News team. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a good one.